Have you ever felt like you're holding everything together on the outside, but on the inside, you're just exhausted? You're showing up for your kids, you're doing what needs to be done, but it feels like you're constantly running on empty. And maybe you've even wondered, why does this feel so hard? Or why can't I just handle this better? If you're parenting a child with big emotions or navigating anxiety, stress, or just the weight of it all, I want you to hear this today. You're not failing. You're not broken. You might just be stuck in survival mode. And in this episode, we're going to talk about what that really means and how you can begin to find your way out of it. Ever feel like one meltdown turns your day upside down? Are you walking on eggshells with emotions and challenging behaviors? Need peace in your home? You're in the right place. I'm Jamie, mom of 7, professional counselor and parent coach. I've learned how to turn chaos into calm, stop meltdowns, and enjoy time as a family. If you're looking for effective tools, practical ways to connect with your uniquely wired child, and parenting tools that align with faith and family values, you've found it. So reheat that coffee, start that laundry fluffing again, and let's jump in. Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Calm Connection Parenting Podcast. I'm so glad you're here today because we're talking about something that so many parents quietly carry: that anxiety, the exhaustion, the chronic stress, and the emotional toll of just trying to hold everything together. When you're parenting a child with big emotions, neurodivergent needs, or chronic dysregulation, it can be so easy to lose yourself in survival mode. You can feel stretched thin, weighed down by guilt, and oftentimes unsure how to care for your own heart while still showing up for your family. That's why I'm so thankful for today's conversation with Lori Owens. Lori helps adults struggling with anxiety, depression, and trauma symptoms calm their nervous system, regain clarity, and rebuild a life of meaning using positive psychology and practical faith-rooted tools. She's the host of the Practical Solutions for PTSD podcast, and she's passionate about helping people move from survival mode into renewed hope, resilience, and purpose. Lori, I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, I am so excited to be here and to be able to speak into the lives of your parents. It's so important that they are taking care of themselves and being able to support that. So being here to be able to speak into their lives a little bit and give them some tips on how to handle that stress that comes from being a parent anyway, especially the parents that you're speaking to. I'm very blessed to be here, very excited.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. We just got off of our summit last week where we kind of uncovered a lot of feelings and emotions, and where a lot of parents kind of talked about some of that trauma that you feel when you're just parenting with that hypervigilance, and how it really relates to just kind of that feeling of emotional overwhelm or feeling a bit depleted. So there's so many things I want to ask you about today. Let's just start here. Many parents live in a state of chronic stress and emotional depletion. From your perspective, what makes it so hard for people to recognize when anxiety, depression, or trauma symptoms are affecting their everyday life?
Well, some of that is because symptoms of that don't kick in right away. We have these amazing bodies that adapt to whatever situation we're in and rises to the occasion. Adrenaline kicks in and you're in a high operational mode and you get that done. So in the short term, it's actually our bodies are created to do that in the short term, to go through this stress and then come back and recover and rest and do it all over again. Unfortunately, when you're in that chronic stress state, this is where your body begins to adapt to it and becomes your new normal. So you don't always necessarily look for those symptoms. And again, your body's not paying that bill right up front. You've got a lot of symptoms that are going to start showing up later. Very similar. If you think about like taking care of a car, if you don't get your oil changed at 3 months or 3,000 miles exactly, you're going to survive and it's going to be okay. You might can push it down, 6,000, 9,000 miles and you're still operating, but it's taking a wear and tear on that car and it's not going to last as long. Eventually it's going to start breaking down. You're going to start seeing that because you don't have regular maintenance. It's the same thing with our bodies. You're not going to show those symptoms right away. And so this becomes your new normal, and you're functioning at a high degree, and you're like, hey, I've got this. I'm managing. I may be pulling my hair out, but I'm managing. I've got it. I mean, look at all the stuff I'm accomplishing and what I'm doing. And so you don't necessarily see it right away because you're adapting to that. And then part of it too, I think, is because there's still stigma attached to mental health issues. With the exception of chronic stress, for some reason, stress has become a badge of honor lately. It's like, oh, I have so much. People talk about that a lot, but they don't talk about the trauma or the depression or the anxiety that they're dealing with, because there's still a lot of stigma tied to that. Yeah. And so a lot of people go into denial. I'm not, because somehow that's going to make it all better. And especially if you get into faith communities, there's some that will actually tell you Christians don't get depressed. Well, that's not reflected in scripture. That's not what we see there. Right. And so when you're dealing with it, you have the shame attached to it that's in society, but then you double down on that in some Christian communities that tell you you're not supposed to be depressed. And so it makes it even less likely that you're going to start recognizing those symptoms, because you're in denial. You don't want to admit this because of the shame that's attached to that as well.
Yeah. And not wanting to be judged or looked down upon or weak. I know some people really, feel like it would be a weakness, but it's not. Sometimes our bodies are in a state of overwhelm, overstimulation, just worn out. And sometimes, some of the mood and emotional stuff starts showing up more. And we talked about that a little bit last week, how we're so in step with trying to be in the moment, especially as moms, in the moment, and we don't let down much. But you find that when you do let down, sometimes that's when you do start noticing some of those things. Well, I know that I've heard you discuss before why setting boundaries calms anxiety and can reduce our exhaustion. Can you tell me, why are boundaries so important, especially for parents who already feel stretched thin?
For parents who are feeling stretched thin, I would say they're even more important than they are for just the regular person out there. Because if you're not taking care of yourself in some way by setting boundaries, and there's a lot of different types of boundaries. You have some that are self-care boundaries, some that are just, how much you're committing and giving to other people. But one, if you're not taking care of yourself, you're not there to take care of your child. And it becomes so critically important that you are nurturing yourself and supporting yourself to be able to do that. And also, if you have a calling to be a parent of a special needs child or neurodivergent, whatever that may be, that is your primary mission. That is what's important in your life. And it's very, very easy to get distracted by the urgent because it screams so loudly. So when you have other people pulling you different directions to do this, that, or the other, and you're being distracted from your primary mission, that doesn't help you fulfill that. It distracts from it. And so boundaries will help protect that time and make sure that you're hitting your targets and make sure that you're accomplishing what God has called you to do and not what other people are calling you to do. So it becomes even more critical for someone who is stretched thin, because they're utilizing the most precious resource we have is time. It's the one we'll never get back. And it helps you to utilize that more strategically when you have boundaries in place. It helps you to stay connected to people in your life because you're doing it in a sustainable fashion. So it's very, very critical, especially for people that are stretched thin. In fact, I used to tell my crew in the Army when I worked with the Army for 16 years as a civilian, and I would teach this stuff there. And I would tell them oftentimes, the more people depend on you, the more critical you are to the sustainment and support of people in your life, the more critical it is that you are setting boundaries and learning to say no and taking care of yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
So true. So true. And yet I think sometimes boundaries kind of get a bad rap, or we think that you're mean if you set boundaries, or that, boundaries are something that are, I don't know, kind of scary or uncomfortable for people. And yet, boundaries are really all about protecting relationships and protecting the people in them, and putting those safeguards in place that they function in healthy ways. I know many moms feel guilty when they have to begin setting boundaries or taking care of themselves. How can we release that guilt without losing accountability?
Some of it is by shifting your mindset. So there is that bad rep where you're building walls and telling people no and shoving people aside when it comes to building boundaries. That's really not what boundaries are about. Boundaries really are a bridge to maintaining sustainable relationships. And again, with parents, it is so critically important they're taking care of themselves. And I'm sure you've flown commercially and you're on the airlines, they're going through all the safety stuff before you take off. Yeah. And the flight attendant says, if we lose cabin pressure, the mask are going to fall down from above. Put it on yourself first before helping the child or person next to you. First time I heard that, I'm like, well, that's kind of selfish because the children, you're supposed to sacrifice everything for your kids, right? So like, you have to take care of your child. You can't just do that. I'm like, wait a minute. If you pass out from lack of oxygen, you're not going to be there to help your child or to help the person next to you that needs assistance. This is why it's important you put the mask on first, because you have to be there for those people. Same thing with boundaries, especially like self-care boundaries. It's so important you're taking care of yourself and setting those boundaries, even if they're tiny. It's just like a couple minutes to take a breath. It's so important you're doing that, because if you're not going to be there for the people that need you. And so it's very, very important to do that.
Such a good point. And I always love that comparison because it's something we've heard before. And our first reaction is kind of like, oh, wow, gosh, you take care of yourself. But you have to be in good shape to take care of those depending on you. And so I always love that analogy. It makes sense to us. I know you talk about using the way we were made. Our character strengths, personality is kind of a superpower. Can you explain what that means and how parents can begin leaning into their strengths during those hard seasons?
Now, this is one of my favorite topics, like my absolute favorite. For so long, myself, I would compare myself to the people to my right and left, and like, I can't do this as well as they can, or I'm falling short of this expectation. And I remember so clearly one time when I was in Kuwait, and I had this big argument with my battle buddy over a shortfalling of mine, and it drove me crazy. So I'm sure it drove him crazy. And I was crying, just sobbing my eyes out. And I was like, God, can you please change this about me? And he let me get all my emotions out, which God does that. He's super patient about that. Like, just come to me in all your mess. It's okay. Get all past that. And just so quietly, God whispered to my heart, says, Lori, I don't want to change you because it's those very characteristics that make me smile. Like, what? And that was probably the first time that God began to open this window to me and help me to realize he created me the way I am for a reason. And when I'm trying to be like the person on my left and right, I am leaving my position vacant. And there's literally one person in the entire universe who can be me, and that's me. That's it. And God created me for a reason. And so when you can start investigating that and you figure out what are the strengths that I have, what are the character strengths that God has given me, what are the spiritual gifts that I have, and you lean into those and begin to develop them. So you're not overusing them. You're not overextending that. You're using it in the right context, but you lean into that, and it can actually become your superpower because it unlocks the things that you're really good at. I mean, you're super good. And just like a very practical example, I'm not so good at balancing my checkbook. It drives me insane looking for that penny. To me, it's a complete waste of time. I absolutely hate it. But I'm really good at creative thinking and out of the box problem solving. And so for me, it was coming up with creative solutions to manage my finances so I'm not ending up in the red that do not require me to balance my checkbook every month. Yeah. So it works with my personality and it still achieves the end goal. Each one of us, God has given us a set of character strengths, personality traits, and spiritual gifts. He's given to you, Jamie. He's given to me, to your listeners. Each one of us has a unique set that comes together. And if we lean into that and develop those strengths, it gives us tools that help us to manage the stress in our life, the challenges in our life. When we lean into that, it gives us that extra boost and that superpower to be able to overcome what is, all of us have challenges. So it gives us that superpower to be able to overcome them.
I love that. And I couldn't agree more. That's part of how God has equipped us for our journey, even Absolutely. Our journey with our children who need extra, those uniquely wired kiddos. And, that's such an important shift because when you start to see your strengths and understand what's really going on beneath the surface, everything begins to change. And this is actually the kind of work that I walk through with parents inside the Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program. So I want to share this with you, and we'll be back in a minute to hear more from Lori. You need to learn effective ways to handle your child's big emotions and challenging behaviors. But it feels like it's going to take so much time, money, and energy that you just don't have. Thankfully, that's not the case. The Calm Connection Parent Coaching Program will show you how to understand your child's wiring, calm the intense emotions and manage those challenging behaviors with simple tools that actually work. Think of it as your shortcut. No more endless hours of research, expensive appointments, or sleepless nights worrying if things will ever get better. This is just what you've been waiting for, and quite possibly the answer to your prayers. Let's arm you with the best tools to help you parent your child to be all they were created to be. Join me at calmconnectionparent.com. And let's get you back to the peaceful, loving, joy-filled family life you imagined. It's easier than you think, and you don't have to do it alone. I would love to connect with you, so be sure to check out the Calm Connection Parenting Facebook group, where you will hear about a workshop we're having this very week, and where we can just connect. We can understand your life, support you, and just be a voice that says, I get it. I'm here for you on your tough days. Now, let's get back to this conversation with Lori, because I know she has a lot more good things to share with us today. Tell me, Lori, one myth people often believe is that mental health struggles are all in your head, or just something you should be able to control, or mind over matter. Why is that myth so harmful, especially for parents trying to help themselves or even their children?
This myth really is very harmful because it leads to avoidance, denial, and lack of support to be able to help, which makes the problem so much worse. So if you think about it, like we're heading into the summer season, so you're playing in a pool or you're down by the lake and somebody hits a beach ball your direction and it hits the water in front of you. There's going to be a splash or some ripples that go on, but in a little bit, it's going to calm down. It's going to be perfectly normal. But what if you were to take that beach ball, when you grab it and you shove it underwater with all the strength that you have, you push it as far down as you can. Eventually, you're going to lose your grip on it. And when you do, it comes flying out of the water and just way up in the air, causes this ginormous explosion. Water goes everywhere. It's this huge disruption. That's very similar to when you're either acknowledging the emotions that you're dealing with, which is the first scenario where it just lands in front of you, causes a little bit of problems, but then you can move on, as opposed to going into denial and you're suppressing it. Eventually, it's going to come out one way or the other. This could come out in physical ailments. In fact, there's recent research that says up to 95% of all major illnesses have an emotional component.
Isn't that incredible?
Yes. A lot of this comes from suppressing emotions. And so your body begins to, it keeps the score. It begins to show that, and how your physical health begins to deteriorate. It could come out in broken emotions, or it could just be that moment when your child is driving you crazy and all of a sudden everything that you've been suppressing just explodes everywhere. It's so much better to take a moment to just acknowledge what's going on and to deal with it, as opposed to denying it. And when you're denying it, you're not treating it. So this would be very similar to, if you broke a leg and you just like, no, I don't have a broken leg. It's not broken. It's not broken. I promise it's not broken. And you never treat it, you're going to end up with a permanent injury that never heals and never goes back to normal. The same thing is true with your mental health. It's just a different component of the body that is broken in some fashion and needs treatment. And if you get treatment for it, you can heal. You can overcome that. My biggest regret, and because I'm a PTSD survivor, my biggest regret is not getting help sooner. It took me years to go to counseling because I didn't want to admit I needed help. Like I was like, it's just a tough time. I'll get through it. I just need more sleep. Just need to eat healthier. All this stuff. I was just denying that whole process and not acknowledging it. Once I got help, healing was so much faster and so much more sustainable and long term. So there's so much harm that comes from denying. It's just in your head, which you could make a joke of that, like it kind of is in my head, but
but I'm holding it there. I'm storing it there. The only way through it is through it. And you may feel like you've put it away, but it's going to come out at some point.
It's so important to address it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, for the parent who's listening, maybe feeling isolated, discouraged, or ashamed of what they're struggling with internally, what would you want them to know?
Two things. One is a slogan that was from the Iowa Mental Health that they did a few years ago, which I fell in love with. It's okay to not be okay. Mm-hmm. And it really is. It's not a point of shame. It's okay to need help. It's okay to be broken. Now, it's not okay to stay that way. We want you to heal and to move beyond that and to develop skills to handle that. But it's okay to not be okay. It's all right. There, and the other thing is you are not alone. I know when you're in the middle of it, it feels so isolating and because you don't even understand yourself sometimes. I know I would be like, why am I having a meltdown over this? It's not a big deal because you don't understand your own behavior. You don't understand your own reactions because your brain is just not functioning like normal. And you feel very isolated. Like nobody's going to understand if I tell them. They won't know what I'm talking about. You're not alone. There is a whole group of people out there that are walking through the exact same thing you're walking through. And it's important to get plugged into that community. And you have a community here in your podcast with your parents. And you mentioned your Facebook group earlier, and the seminars you have, the summits, the group work groups. There, you've built a community. I've done the same thing with my people because you're not alone. There's people that will come along beside you and help you, people that have been ahead of you, maybe only a step or two, but they can shine some light back on the pathway that you're on and to be able to help you.
So true. So true. Well, how can parents hold on to hope and purpose without putting pressure on themselves to instantly turn that pain into meaning?
One of my favorite scriptures is where God promises that he makes beauty out of ashes. God can take the absolute horrible destruction of our lives and turn it into something so beautiful. But God does not get in a hurry. We live in an instant society. And it's even more so with AI. You know, if I type this into AI, I'll have all my questions.
I'll know in 2 seconds.
Yes, awesome. And trust me, I love the speed at which we move. I'm not complaining about that, but it can impact how we think about our relationship with God. Like I prayed to him 5 times and he hasn't done anything. I've been dealing with this for 5 weeks and nothing's happened. God does not get in a hurry. And we see this in scripture. Like Joseph spent somewhere between 13 and 15 years, either in Potiphar's house or in the dungeon before he was elevated to be the leader of the Egyptian world under Pharaoh. Moses spent 40 years in the Egyptian government and then 40 years in the wilderness before God called him to deliver the people of Israel from slavery. There's so many examples you see through scripture. God does not get in a hurry. Job, there's no recording in scripture where God ever did tell Job why he suffered what he did. But how many people throughout the ages has that story given hope to? And knowing that God had his back the entire time and knew exactly what was going on, had put hedges around him and protected him, even through the midst of that. God does not waste your pain, but you may not know where that's going for some time, but you can anchor your hope in the fact that God does not waste it. That is a fact. It's not, I think so, maybe that's a fact. God does not waste our pain. He will use it somehow. And it gives you hope to just take one more step, just one more step and one more step until you get to the other side.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. And it seems like so often God even uses the pain that we've experienced in life as fuel for a passion as well. I can't tell you how many times those two go hand in hand.
Yes, that's what happened with me. That's why I am where I am today, because I came home from Kuwait with chronic severe PTSD, extreme burnout, a lot of issues related to toxin exposures, and I didn't understand myself. So figuring out how to put my body back together, how to heal my mind, that's what sparked my passion for what I do today.
Yeah, that's so true. And there's so many parents that either come into parenting with some trauma that they've experienced, and then they find that parenting a high need child tends to trigger whatever trauma they've experienced. Or some of them have come into parenting with a very clear idea of what they thought parenting would be like. And then maybe they end up with a child who has complex needs. And it could be that living with that emotional intensity and that level of hypervigilance kind of proves to be a trauma for many families and parents. And so, however you may be experiencing trauma or chronic stress or the anxiety in your life, I want you to know, just like Lori said, you are not alone. There are so many people experiencing that. Lori, this has been such a meaningful and hope-filled conversation. Thank you so much for speaking honestly and practically into something that so many parents carry quietly. I think what I want parents to hear most is this: it is okay to not be okay. And you've said that already. Mental health challenges are not a character flaw, and they're not something to hide in shame. There are practical things that we can do. There is always support available, and there's real hope for moving forward and looking to get out of that darkness. It won't last forever. For those of you who are listening, this may be a reminder that your story matters, your healing matters, and God does not waste your pain, just like Lori said. Thank you so much for being with us. And until next time, remember to keep calm and parent on. That's it for today. If you enjoyed today's episode, would you take a quick minute to follow and share it with a friend who's looking for tools to parent those big emotions? And don't forget to join the Calm Connection Parenting Facebook group. This is where I can connect with you and offer support as you walk this journey. All right, I'll let you decide whether to fluff or fold that laundry now. But I'll meet you back here next week. Until then, keep calm and parent on.